League of Ireland duo, Owen Heary and Barry Murphy in studio with myself and Keith. How are you, lads? You well?
Not bad.
A loyal commentator has pointed out on YouTube, MG, and it's a damning indictment of where this competition lies. He goes, Keith, FA Cup final preview, double question mark. I haven't mentioned it once, but Crystal Palace play Manchester City tomorrow in the FA Cup final at 4:30 at Wembley. There'll be no Premier League football tomorrow, so it's all happening tonight, 2 games tonight and the rest on Sunday. So at least that's happened, because remember when Wigan won it in 2013, there was Premier League games that very day, so people weren't even watching it properly. So at least they've given it the day, but it doesn't really feel like much of an occasion.
To be fair though, Pep has talked it down himself, saying that the City players aren't really up for it.
It's big for Palace though, isn't it? It's
huge for Palace, but I think the reason it's probably gone under the radar a little bit is that Manchester City aren't really treating it as a huge final. They've come out and said even if we win it, it's a poor season by our standards. So I'd love to see Palace do it. I think most neutrals would like to see Palace do it, just given the financial backing that Manchester City have.
Why do you think that is, on the FA Cup final?
I just listened to Keith's comment there saying that Pep playing it down, but I guarantee the players aren't thinking that way. They're thinking with a medal in their pocket. Like, you know, poor season overall, but to come away with an FA Cup medal is not a bad return for them, considering they were getting beaten week in, week out, week in, week out. But for Palace, this is a massive, massive game for Palace. You know, and I actually think, looking at it on paper, you'd say City to have a better team, but I think Palace are more determined about going and winning this. Like, you know, the Sarr and the Eze and Tata up front, which they caused teams some serious problems. And you've seen them in the semi-final, how good they were.
Against Aston Villa, destroyed them,
They destroyed them, and you would have expected Villa to be going into the final, like, you know, considering the season they had. But Palace was saying to turn it on and just get results constantly, like, you know, and they're an exciting team to watch, not like the Palace of old, but they're exciting to watch. And it's actually, as you say, it's a standalone game tomorrow, and I'm interested in watching it, to be honest, because it'll be an interesting point. It's not the two top teams going at it again.
Yeah, for Palace, it's probably some of the players' pinnacle of their career.
Huge.
It's going to be the FA Cup final. Like, so you talk about Pep playing it down. The players are thinking, this is, of all the finals at this time of the year, this is the one we probably didn't see ourselves in or taken seriously. But again, as Sam said, it's a medal in the pocket, one-off game. You've got to go out and perform. But as he said, there's no build-up this week at all, and the FA Cups of old. You know, I remember as a kid the build-up to it all week.
9 in the morning on Saturday at BBC.
Watching the buses going through, like the crowds and everything. You're probably not going to get that tomorrow. So as an association, they've probably downplayed it as well. So they're probably going to have to look at what way they market this competition going forward, if it's going to be downgraded the way it is at the moment. Like,
we've so much to get through here, because we've a full fixture list in the League of Ireland tonight. We have those 2 Premier League games that I mentioned. We have Stephen Kenny's comments from during the week. We have Tim Clancy leaving Cork City. But I might get your opinion, as we talked about at the start of the show, myself, Keith and Dara, the aligned football calendar. That was the clip we played there in the break when Owen and Nathan were joined by callers from across the country about it. And I don't know what's your opinion of it, because I was firmly on the line of align the calendar, play more football in the summertime. Kids aren't getting enough football at their feet. They have to improve. That's the only way they're going to improve. But a lot of people made some reasonable arguments last night that certainly the parents and the coaches are just not around in the summer. It's not as easy to do it. And other people don't want it. They want for the mental health aspect, they want to continue playing in the winter time. I don't know, Barry, what you think of how we should do this and how we should go about it.
There's going to be a million reasons why not to do it. And that's the problem. You've got, like, you nearly have to get everyone who's dissenting against it into the Aviva for a conclave and just sort this out, because it's rattling on year. Everybody's got opinions, but you've just got to go and do it now. It's worked in the Mayo leagues. Like, you've got evidence that it's worked at that level, so you've got to spread it out. And it does come to a point though where you go, you've got to choose a route that you're going down. If you're in school and you're not doing French and Spanish at the same time, you're picking a subject. So there's got to become a point where you go, this is where I want to go forward. I want to go and be a footballer. I want to go and play GA. But at this stage of things, you've got to let them play as many sports as you can. And you've got to work around that. So I think you've got to align it.
Yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons to it. As you said, having the 2 leagues run coincide is obviously the big plus of it. But you have to look at parents' point of view as well. Like, their kids are off in the summer. Is the one child that's playing the sport, the other children, are you thinking, well, I have to bring them away on the holidays because they're off during the year? And then you take that young fella away from the football. He's going away. He's missing games. His coach has turned up and saying, I don't have players this week because 3 or 4 of them are gone away, so we're cancelling games, cancelling matches. So there's a lot of stuff that you have to consider into it. You say the summer was for a League of Ireland. That's where we went because the pitches are better, which makes more sense for the kids. They'll play more football. The games aren't called off as much unless the players are away. Winter football, pitches aren't great for them to play in. But what do you do in the winter, the kids? They're sitting at home. They're in their room playing the PlayStation, things like that. How do you get them out? How do you keep them involved in sports? So, look, this is for the powers that be that want to decide what way to do this. Do they move the League of Ireland back to the winter, or do they move the kids' football into the summer?
The thing that gets me is, like, say, oh, people go away in the summertime. And look, maybe that is the case. That, like, Vinny Perth was saying, like, a lot of Dubs go down to Wexford for the summer. They have mobile homes down there. But I would say, like, traditionally speaking, people go away for what, like 2 weeks? That's 2 games you're missing, and then you're back. So what's the big deal, Keith?
Yeah, but
I don't know.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks there, but then another player goes away then for the next 2 weeks, and he's missing them games. So you're missing players every week. It's not to say then the matches are going to go ahead, because I know managers now, when they don't have their players, they're like, oh, we have to call the match off. We say there's something on, there's a wedding on, there's something on that they have to go to, and they end up cancelling the matches over.
Well, I'll put it to you this way: is the current system and calendar working? That's really the question. Because so many games are called off between November and February, so you're not playing enough anyway, so there's a break there no matter what.
I think it's the next logical step when you look at the League of Ireland moving forward, and I know people will speak about the grassroots side of it. I would be pretty naive on that side of the fence, but in terms of League of Ireland clubs, I think we need the aligned calendar. It's as simple as that. The rest of Europe are doing it, and for the League of Ireland moving forward, it's the next logical step. I understand there's going to be a lot of noses put out of joint. It's not going to be perfect, but it still has to happen. People saying, oh, the lads are on holiday in the summer, X, Y and Z is going. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it still has to happen. And yeah, I see it as a necessity for the League of Ireland to take the next step. You know, when Shamrock Rovers played Chelsea, were Shamrock Rovers in their pre-season or just finished season? You're like, that shouldn't be happening. If you've done so well, the reward is to go and play an elite club within Europe. When you're not at your best, you're going into a game handicapped because of the calendars, which for me should never ever happen.
No, I was talking to people in Iceland around when Rovers got them Vikingur in the first round of the UEFA Cup or the Champions League. And they're saying 2016, the money they got in that Euros went back into the community sports centres. They built Astros all over the country. They're playing in the height of winter in the snow indoors. There's no reason we can't do that here. And it comes back to facilities. So if you have those options, and obviously we're not going to have it for a while, there's no facilities, no money. If you have that option in the winter to play indoors, you've got to align things until we get those facilities set up. So there's got to be a plan B in terms of doing that. But a country the size of Iceland can do it. Why can't we do it? Like, it's ridiculous.
Why don't we try the January, at least try it, right? Try the January to December thing. You don't have to play during the summer. You can break it up for yourself, right? And then, like you say, Barry, in the winter time, there are Astros you can play in across the country to stay fit, to keep enjoying the game. So there's reasons. You were saying, only, kids stuck in the house playing PlayStation, whatever. But there are a lot of Astros around the country. It's not possible for everyone. I get that in their location, but it is doable, and that would mean that pretty much 12 months across the calendar, you are playing some sort of football, like. And if we want to develop the next generation, something needs to change, because it's not looking good, lads, for the next generation. Like, whatever about the Republic of Ireland now, I don't know how confident I am about the next generation.
No. You're talking about contact hours and getting kids in, like Duffer going into Shamrock Rovers years ago and having them up at 6 a.m. Just facilities there to play throughout the winter, so you've got to use them. That's got to be the way forward. You've got to use these Astro pitches and go out and play all time, all year round, because you're going to be playing matches in the freezing cold. Half the season here is freezing cold, so you've got to go and do it.
There's no rules anymore. There's no sportsmanship at all. It doesn't exist now. It's a big change for me coming in. Sportsmanship is a thing of the past. That's the way it is. The rules are you don't have to kick the ball out unless it's a head injury. Sportsmanship is dead and gone. It's with O'Leary in the grave. They're the words of the former Republic of Ireland manager and current St. Patrick's Athletic boss, Stephen Kenny. For the podcast listeners, Keith Tracy is shaking his head.
Yeah, I feel Pats haven't been at the races the last couple of games. The performance against Shelbourne, the first 45 minutes, they were a better team. The second 45, Shelbourne were much the better team. Against Galway, they won the game of football, but they were poor. Against Bohs, the last couple of minutes, they lost the lead. So I think Stephen is just trying. Look, I understand there was a diagonal ball that Chris Forrester dangled his leg out for, and then he's held his groin, gone down straight away. But I'm in the stands as a Pats man and thinking, I wouldn't put the ball out. It's his groin. It's not a head injury. It wasn't an elbow.
It's just outside of Shels' box as well.
Yeah,
like.
but,
it's also, without cutting across you, Bohs played Pats a while ago, and the keeper, Joseph Anang, every time he got the ball when they 1-0 up, was on the ground, and then he'd kick the ball out and call the physio on. And it was gamesmanship. Like, he was killing the game because they were 1-0 up, and he'd done it for everything. The fans were getting frustrated, the players were getting frustrated. He kicked the ball out, and Bohs decided not to give it back to him. And I wouldn't blame them, being honest, because he kept doing the whole game, wasting time. And all of a sudden then their game turned, he couldn't lift their game again, and then the Bohs winning 2-1. So he's giving out about not putting the ball out for Forrester. But Forrester got injured, but it's not a head injury, as Keith said.
And it's up to the ref as well. It's up to the ref. It's his discretion whether he wants to stop it or not, if it's not a hand injury.
The kids play to the whistle. So you don't stop, you continue on, but he can't have it both ways. He can't be telling his, I'm not saying he's telling his keeper, but he can't have his keeper going down every game to waste time and then say, oh, there's no sportsmanship in the game, because that's bad sportsmanship in my eyes. They're going down just to waste time all the time.
Where was his outrage? Well, Mulroney should have been sent off against Rovers. 2 yellow cards. There was not a mention of it.
The second dive, yeah.
And again, like, Stephen was probably, from playing that Dundalk side in 2014, 2015, they were one of the most cynical sides around. 12 penalties they got that year. Richie Towell scored 9 goals from penalties that season. And listen, I'm sure some of them were, but they worked a lot off set pieces. So they gained free kicks from, not deceiving the ref, but they were very smart about how they did it, the dark arts. So his memories kind of lapsed in that. He's had a Men in Black moment from that period in time.
Yeah, and like that, you say if you kick it out with Forrester, they must have say in the next game that someone does a winning 1-0 and someone's on the break, I'll lie down here because the ball should be kicked out. It doesn't happen. That's football. It doesn't happen. Unless there's a head injury and the referee calls it, it's not going to happen. Play on.
In the middle of a Dublin derby as well, you go down holding your groin, you're expecting the opposition to put the ball out.
Yeah, no chance.
Can you imagine the Shels fans if they kicked that ball out? Like,
That boot will come off in the game and someone say, you better kick it out, put the boot back on. That's, you know what I mean? It's just...
If if those exact comments were still said, but Stephen Kenny was unattached, would you listen?
No, it's nothing to do with it. It's not a personal attack on
No, because
Kenny.
we're talking about the bias here, that, you know, Pats are getting affected.
No,
so he was just saying it as a pundit.
I don't think it holds any weight at all.
there's not a player in the country that kicks that ball
you disagree with it. And I'm sure if you asked the Pats players if it was the other way around, they wouldn't have put the ball out.
And by the way, Shelbourne didn't go straight for the juggler. When Chris Forrester missed the ball and held his groin, he didn't go straight from one end of the pitch to the other and score a goal. There was a good 30-40 seconds before they hit the back of the net, so it wasn't like Pats were taken by surprise and Shelbourne were half thinking about kicking it out and saying players were standing around. That wasn't the case. They just didn't defend well enough, which they haven't been doing over the last couple of weeks. So I think Stephen is maybe throwing up a few smokes and mirrors to get people talking about that rather than the actual Pats performance over the last couple of weeks, because, as I say, it hasn't been good enough. The
actual rule for sportsmanship is it's only a head injury now you kick it out, isn't it? So
yeah,
any other injury you play on, which is still still seems a bit ambiguous in certain games, but that is the rule as of a couple of years.
The ref, like, you've just got to play on until, as Keith said though, I look back on it, it's 30-40 seconds between that when he goes down the attack. They've gone over to the left, come back over to the right. This pass defending was awful. They just didn't get a block in.
It happened actually the United game there a while ago where DeLitt went down and again play on a goal and they slaughtered the United players because they turn off for it. So it happens at the highest level, every level. You know, you just play on until the referee blows the whistle.
So we're all agreed Stephen Kenny was right, what he said, yeah. So we have 5 games, 10 teams in action, everyone playing tonight in the League of Ireland. Every game kicking off at 7:45. And staying on that, involving Stephen Kenny, Pat's entertaining Cork City, quite the week for the Leesiders. We had Tim Clancy on during the week and I was asking him if he had beaten Derry, would you have stayed? And he said maybe, but it would have only delayed the inevitable. But there was not a massive shock that he left, but the manner of the exit, Owen, was striking. Minutes after the final whistle.
He probably saying it himself that he's not getting the best out of it. And I feel a bit sorry for him because he's missing his 2 strikers that he put a lot of money on to say these 2 are going to get me the goals to stay in this division. You know, and you don't expect 2 strikers to get injured. I know Sean Maguire's coming back, but you know, they've been unlucky in games. They've been 2-2 against Drogheda to see the penalty in the 96th minute, a bit of naivety by the keeper. Last week, Derry 1-1, and then Hull comes and powers a header in. Again, they're just losing games. But against Bohs, I watched them where he had a lot of chances, just didn't have a striker to put the ball in the net. And you know, so he's at this stage, he's probably thinking, I've got what I can out of them. Time for someone else to come in and maybe tweak it a little bit to try keep them in the division.
You're well qualified to talk about this and the pressures of management in the League of Ireland with your stints at Bohs and Shels and Sligo Rovers. It's all encompassing, I imagine, is it? Does everything else take a back seat? Everything,
yeah, it does.
Life, family life, everything.
I'm sure he's 24/7 on the phone trying to do this, looking back at games, analysing games, players, their performances, even players of what they're doing off the pitch, which does tell a lot, like, you know. And he's probably overthinking everything. He's not sleeping properly. You know, you win one game, and then your weekend is made. But then all of a sudden, come the Monday or the next day, you're like, oh my God, here we go again. And
are the highs worth it though?
Well, I don't know, to be honest with you, because even as a player, the highs are great because when you win something, but as a manager, you're winning one week and you have a high, next minute you're brought back down to earth quickly enough. If you look at Rennie this year, where they've lost a few games, he was getting slaughtered like, but the fans wanted him out, bounce back. All of a sudden, he's the best manager in the country at the moment. You know what I mean? So that could quickly change again if he loses tonight again, or just they'll turn on him. Is
it even more difficult if you're like an assistant coach or a first team coach, because you have to work very hard and there's all the pressures, but if you win, you don't get the credit.
No, I think it's easier as a coach.
Because there's less pressure overall.
It's less because it's like, oh, he's the manager, he's getting he's the one in front of the cameras, he's the one that's taking the flack. You know, if they're losing, it goes on him. They never turn around and say it's the coach's fault, it's not the manager's fault.
They often get kept on as well when the manager gets the bullet and he's the next man up. And that's, so are they taking the blame? You should nearly have a full wipeout when a manager goes, I think, like going in there. But look, Tim set out his stall last year at the PFEI Awards at the end of the season. He threw a little comment in about Usher. He said, they were like, how do you think you'll get on next season? He said, well, it depends how much they're willing to spend.
Yeah.
The solve was kind of set out then, but like, looking at them when they came up to Rovers a couple of weeks ago, they did have a really minuscule staff. He said himself he was clipping his own videos and sending them to the video staff to try and turn them into some sort of analysis. So you've got that drive, you come home and you're doing all that sort of stuff. That's the kind of thing that needs to be taken off your hands. And
you're probably working just as hard at the League of Ireland level as you are at the absolute elite level of the game, but the difference is you don't have the help and you don't have the budget. I mean, Tim Clancy said he couldn't get an assistant manager for a long time and ended up having to do the work himself, basically. And you're, I think, 7 years out of management now. You left Shels in 2018.
God, put my hair back and all.
Well, you've answered the question. You never again.
No, never again. No, that's
no matter who came to you.
There's a depression out of it as a manager, and even as a player. I had this where you've lost a game. You don't want to talk to anyone. You literally won't talk to your family, your friends, nothing. The only people that you communicate with is people that were involved in the game. Surprisingly enough. So when I was a player, like, you know, if I lost the game, I'd drink Stewie Byrne the next day, or Patsy, or Nutsy, or someone like that, you know, and you'd be able to talk to them. But you wouldn't be able to talk to anyone else, family. You'd be just like, don't go near them, just leave them. And as a player, you can affect it on the pitch. As a manager, you can't. You give them all the information, you tell them this is what's going to happen, and then you just do something on the pitch. You're like, why did they do that? But you can't do anything for them, only give them instructions on the pitch or decide the pitch, tweak things. But still, if the result goes against you, your head is gone, like, you know.
Were the people in your life accommodating? Like, did they help you along?
Yeah, they knew. My missus and the kids knew exactly, like, leave them. Do you know what I mean? Don't go near. And it is a depression. As much as people don't want to talk about it and things, you do be depressed after the games if you got beaten. And then it's trying to pick yourself up, but not only pick yourself up, you have to pick the lads up and go again. The whole staff, everyone. And then if the results keep going, it's you that's getting it. It's not the players. You could turn around and say, well, those players are bad eggs there, you need to get rid of them. You can't just get rid of them.
Depression more stark because there's no sympathy as well, because it's the manager.
No one has sympathy for a manager because they're saying, he's doing the job that he loves and blah, blah, blah.
So, Owen, you've managed Keith. You don't want to manage. You've made that decision already. What about yourself, Barry? Where do you fall?
No, I'm definitely not after hearing that. No, I never had kind of an inkling to go into it or coaching, really. Like, just something I didn't want to pursue. But I said it was hard enough, especially as a goalkeeper, and you've lost a match, and invariably it could be down to you, and you do lose your weekend over it, don't you? And it's family suffers. You don't go out that weekend, yet it goes into the next game, and if it keeps moving on, I can only imagine what it's like when the whole onus is on you as a manager, because you're in charge of everything. It's in a smaller version as a goalkeeper, you feel it's your fault, but I've seen it as a player, so I definitely wouldn't want it as a manager now.
So tonight we have Pats against Cork City, as I said, Waterford against Shamrock Rovers. The worry that the rest of the league has outside of Stephen Bradley's side is that they're going to regain the title now. They're already top. I'd be worried.
Yeah, I think that they're going to start flexing on muscle now. If they win tonight, they'll definitely look like they're on top of the table now at the moment, not by playing the best football over the last couple of weeks, but they've got results, they're on top, and I think now is where they're going to push on. Like, you know, they have down in Waterford tonight, obviously John Colman down there, new manager. Waterford on a good run, but I just think Rovers will have the firepower to push them aside and continue on their run going forward.
Is there a way back for Drogheda, Keith, to the top of the table again?
In terms of winning the league?
Can they regain top spot throughout the season? Is that them done with the early season? Like, they're 3 points off now in third place.
In fairness, they probably are done, but like, Kevin Doherty didn't start the league thinking we need to win the league here.
A lot of people said they were going to get relegated.
Exactly. I was one who thought, you know what, Drogheda might be the one to prop up the league this season, and they've been in relegation battles for the last couple of years, but they've been outstanding this season, and I have full sympathy for Kevin Doherty because they're being held to the standard of champions, but they draw against Sligo when people are saying, my God, Drogheda have come off the boil. Their remit is to stay in the league, and they're absolutely flying at the minute. So the odd loss here, the odd draw here, it's no problem from what I'm saying. Warren Davis up front has been brilliant. The Lua is he's absolutely lightning in behind. So they can sit back, defend really well, spring up the pitch and heat and hurt you. When I seen Keeley got into the Irish team yesterday, I actually thought it was the centre half Keeley for Drogheda, but it's the brother. But look, to go back to Shamrock Rovers with Bourne and Burke starting to get back into the team at the same time now, both getting fit. I think Shamrock Rovers could go from strength to strength, and it's not. I don't think any neutral wants to see that Rovers running away with it, because it's been brilliant, and Josh Honohan getting called up for the Irish team as well will have a little bounce in that Shamrock Rovers dressing room.
It's going to be. I think Derry will come up. I think they're the ones. Look at the
Finally,
Shels, Pats, and away win in Cork, and for the first time in about 5 years, there's an atmosphere in the Brandywell now as well, which is always good. And look, your boys are starting to score goals, so it's starting to come together a little bit for them, and they're a little bit isolated up there. Pressure probably isn't as much on them in terms of media coverage as well. They can come down and get the results, and I think it'll be between them and Rovers for the league.
Who would have thought after 15 games that Bohs would be ahead of Shels?
I would have.
Really?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
What's going on with why would you have a lack of faith in Shels?
No, I don't have a lack of faith in Shels. I just think that they've won the league last year, so there's more pressure on them now to retain it. And people are going to the ground of the champions. There's always a lift when you play against the team that has won the league. And I'm looking at Shels last year. The last 2 years they've maintained a solid discipline level over the last 2 years. But I think now this year the teams are going to know that they're champions and saying, right, we're going to take the game to Shels. Now they've dropped form, they've drawn a fair few games, and they've won 1 in 5. They beat Pats last week, late goal. But today it's going to be a big test for them. I think Bohs are on a great run as they are. They've scored goals in the 85th, 96th, 97 and 87th minute in the last couple of games. Late goals. People are saying turn up at 9:30, watch Bohs, and that's when you'll see the goals going in. But it's, for Shels to see if their title credentials are there. We asked the questions last week. They beat Pats, that's showing that they're still in the hunt for this. They retained their title. But I think tonight is another massive test for them. They beat Bohs there. Recently, that was Bohs' last defeat in the Dublin derby, was to Shels. So tonight is a big game for them. And Kieran McElroy, I think for Shels, is a vital player in there for them. I think he's one of the best players in the league. I watched him against Bohs the last game. No, I don't mean he's the best player in the league. But he's seen him. He was the best player in the park against Bohs the last time. I know you gave the man of the match to Woods, but Woods was gone off. I thought Kerr was excellent, really, really good. When Buckle come on, sort of took the little sting out of him. Keith Buckley comes on last week, and I keep saying it, every time he comes on, he changes the game, ball over the top, and they get the goal. So I think maybe Buckle might start to play against him to nullify him tonight. I'm not sure, but it'll be an interesting game there. Good Dublin derby to look forward to.
What's going on with Lys Mousset?
Yeah.
I seen him last week. Obviously scored a great goal against Sligo, but over the last couple of months he doesn't seem to have trimmed down too much. What I seen him on the pitch, I think, you know what, there's something there. There's still something to get behind. But physically, he doesn't look like he's lost an awful lot of weight, and he's had time enough now. So for me, alarm bells would be ringing, thinking, are you fully invested in this? Because your body shape doesn't look like you are, and you don't want to be digging players out. But 322 minutes he's played so far. 70 minutes is the longest he's played within the season. He's had 1 or 2 injuries, I know, but his first goal, are we expecting him to kick on now from a Bohs point of view?
I agree with you. I don't think he's fit enough. I watched him when he come on in games, and he's finding it hard to close and chase people down. He does have some good touches, brings people into play. In front of goal, he is a threat. He came on last week. I think Hutchison should have done better for the goal last week against him. Hutchison should have got his body in between him and the ball. But it's a good little cameo for him to come on and get a goal and hopefully kickstart him. But I agree with you that he doesn't look fit. I think Anna Reynolds come out and said he'd be on the bench again tonight because he's not fit.
Yeah.
You're not going to get 90 minutes out of him. Are you going to get 20 minutes, 30 minutes? I don't know. Especially when you play against the better teams, the likes of Shels, the likes of the top teams, Rovers. Is he going to give you that threat for 20, 30 minutes? But what he will do is, he's not a bad player to bring on to get a goal maybe, or to bring you into the game, because he does that little bit of a threat. But yeah, I agree with you that he definitely has to slim down, and Rennie came out and said on himself.
Barry, what you
the
reckon?
league's moved on from when you can bring that bit of quality in, and that's all you're adding to a game.
Yeah.
You have to have everything else around it. Now you just question maybe when he first came over, he was living in a hotel. Is he still in the hotel, or are you in a digs with lads around you who are looking at you going, are you sure you should be eating that? Are you sure you should be out doing extra little bits, like, and that kind of...
He should know that himself, because
of course, he's played
he's a top pro.
But
you need to look
that's it,
after
though.
yourself.
He played in the Premier League, so he's thinking, maybe a bit thinking, sure, this is grand, like, it's only Ireland.
Yeah, but no, for himself I'm talking about. Doesn't matter whether it's Ireland, doesn't matter whether you're playing
I
at
know,
Phoenix Park. Me as a pro, I'm looking at myself, and I've always seen my weight coming on, which I did when I retired. Like, I was like, I'm starting to put on weight here. And you start in your head getting paranoid, but you go out and do something about it. If he's living in a hotel and he's eating like that, and he's not interested about walking it off, then there's problems for him.
But you're looking at 5 weeks into the league and he's not done that, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, this league isn't as easy and I'm not doing well in it. I need to change something. So it's until this point till he scored.
Yeah, and like for people listening, you say, is he living in a hotel? People think, that's no big deal. That becomes a nightmare. You know, when you're in a hotel as a footballer twice a week and you're getting your head down, you're eating the same food, the menu very rarely changes, the same faces, you can't get your laundry done. It becomes a nightmare. You can get yourself into, or I would generally get myself into trouble in hotels when I was left there as a player by myself.
I love a hotel. I love it.
After about 10 days though, it wears off. You're thinking, I'm not having this anymore. You just rather your own little bit of space, like nowhere to cook. You can't cook for yourself.
I did have to isolate in the hotel room for COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the only bad experience I had.
Decent hotel though.
It was grand though. The balcony was there. There was a bit of sun like that.
But they were saying, Keith, like, he's in a hotel constantly and he's looking for something to do. He needs to trim down, so start getting out in the gym that evening, or start running, like, get out, do something, get yourself slimmed down, because he really needs to do that. And not only for Bohs and for the league, but if he wants to push on and go back to the level that he was at, he's going to have to.
But it's so difficult. Like, he's played. We've said he's played in the Premier League. He's a French under-21 international. You go and train for Bohs. You're back in the hotel at 1 o'clock, and you're thinking, you know what? Wouldn't mind something here, and you end up getting a chicken curry or something, or something you shouldn't be eating, and then by 8 o'clock you think, I'll just nip to the Spar and I'll get a couple of things, and
you end up eating when you're bored.
Before you know it, you're just paddling against the stream. I don't know. There's obviously a lot there. It's a little bit sad because I look at him, I think there's a lot there. The first game in the season in the Aviva, I thought I want to see more, and he just hasn't seemed to lose that little bit of timber.
We'll do predictions for this game, so because we have live commentary of it with Stephen Doyle and Richie Towell. Bohemians against Shelburne. Barry?
I don't know, like you look at Shels, I don't think Damien knows his best team. And that's
is that a problem though? Because versatility is good though, isn't it?
He's made 8 first half substitutions alone this season, which is incredible. And 12 if you take in half time. He's made a triple substitution last week, and now it's worked. 48 minutes they've scored from then on, but they've conceded 11 goals in the first half. Like this season, that's pretty bad for where they were last season in terms of the whole season. They conceded very little, but I don't know. I think just the momentum switched a little bit towards Bohemians, I think, and I think they might just nick it tonight.
I'm going for the score draw. I don't think both teams are capable of keeping clean sheets, too many clean sheets. And Duffer being suspended for tonight, you don't know where he's going to sit, whether he's going to be up in the gantry. The Shels fans are in the Bohs fans section, so it'll be an interesting game, but I definitely think it'll be a score draw.
I'd go for a draw. I think Shels will get a draw. I think Bohs will be the better team, but Shels will just have that bit of grit and bit of determination, and we'll get out of there with a draw. And look, I echo what Owen is saying about Kerr McEnroy. I think he's been outstanding, but I do think once Paddy Barrett becomes fit, you'll get Coyle in next to him, and the midfield will become more solid, the defence will become more solid, and then big Sean Boyd coming up front when he gets fit. I think he's exactly what Shelbourne need. If you want to press Shelbourne, they play over the top to Sean Boyd. When they don't have Sean Boyd, they've got Becco up there or Martin, which aren't quite as physical as Sean Boyd is. So I think he's a big part of how Shelbourne go about things. If teams want to press, if they want to stand off, they can put balls into the box to them. So I think Damien Duff will be just happy to tread water and wait till his so-called bigger players come back and then really go for it then.
The other League of Ireland game tonight, Galway United against Sligo Rovers, and there's 2 Premier League games as well. 7:30 Aston Villa Spurs, and then 8:15 Chelsea against Manchester United. So the Champions League places are still quite interesting there. But before we wrap up, our buddy Sean Dyche was on that podcast in England there during the week, and revealed in the first 5 minutes that he was a former roommate of Roy Keane's. They spent time together in Nottingham Forest. Who was your favourite roommate throughout the years of being
favourite roommate? I didn't in hotels. I didn't room with anybody. I like to be by myself. I would walk around naked the whole time, so nobody ever wanted to room with me.
Look, you weren't isolating with him.
That wasn't isolating. No, nobody ever wanted to room with me. But I had a fun house when I was playing for Preston and Blackburn. I lived in a place called Lytham, and a lot of the players would have been in and around me. So I was one of the single lads. So my house was just a party house the whole time. So yeah, everybody lived with me at one stage. I couldn't say one person, but everybody lived with me at one stage.
Were you roommate lads? Type of lads that wanted them?
Who would I had Paul Doolan at one stage, Stephen Gagan, they're the ones. Like Gago, you don't know around where he's just a messer constantly, like, you know, he'd be cutting stuff up. Or I remember who was it, Johnny Priceman got a brand new shirt, and you know the usual when you're on pre-season you're not allowed out, so we hid his shirt, brand new white spark, and next minute we're all going training, there it is, cut up the bits hanging up. Gago just chopped his whole jeans, everything up, just left it hanging there for them. Poor old Johnny Priceman spent something like 200-300 quid at the time on a new shirt. But who else? Richie Baker, Jamie Harris, Yeah, so there's a few good roommates in my time.
Yeah, Dave Webster probably would have been mine at Rovers. We spent a month with him in India in pre-season, so you get to know a man intimately when I was eating his curries in India for a month. So, yeah, one I'd rather forget.
All right,
I have one that absolutely hated rooming with me. When Pats went to play Dynamo Minsk and Dinny Corcoran got thrown in a room with me. And you know when you go away and sometimes they're two single beds put together. Dinny absolutely hated it.
We had now you say it, we had 3 in a room, me, Jamie Harris and Alan Cawley, and there was a cot, so we used to put Alan Cawley on the cot. He'd tell you that himself. So we threw in, so because I was the senior pro, I got the double bed and Jamie got the single one and he got the cot. So
it's always a big moment though, those European trips, wasn't it, when you go up to reception and you're handed the key but on who you're placed with, like.
Heads falling off. Not him.
Yeah, no, probably that's most of the people say about me, not him. It's too intense sitting there.